right, it's starting to come together and things are looking more like a car. Getting some plastic on and kind of dresses it all up. The next thing I had to deal with is protecting this radiator because it's out front instead of behind the bulkhead anymore, so it needs some additional protection from damage, particularly at the bottom. So what I decided to do is I'm going to put a cactus smasher on here, basically a push bar like Dukes of Hazzard, and I need to put bars on it to protect. So the idea was to put one bar across the top right here at the tank. It won't block airflow, but it will protect the tank right up here. That's the top bar. A bottom bar right in front down here to protect the bottom tank, and then a middle bar to balance it out. Basically need that. So that will come around here and protect all the way across in this area. I still want to drop a screen in here, but that'll do that. Then to do that, what I did is I took some cardboard and I made a template, good old CAD, and I knew it was going to be straight down the back. So I started with that, and I cut out around the bumper areas here to make it fit and make sure that I would have slide in here. And then I put my tube circles in and cut it out, and I had a pattern. Same thing for the brackets here. The brackets, same thing. I just went around back, cardboard, went inside to the frame rail where the original hooked up back in here, and I went far enough back to catch the holes. And so that's just a piece that comes out and has some tabs that then intersect with the other part. So I took those patterns, those cardboard patterns, and measured them up, put them in CAD, drew them up, and sent them over to the plasma cutter and cut them out. And so this whole thing is just about ready to go. And contrary to what you may think, we're not adding a lot of weight. It's aluminum. The whole thing doesn't need to be heavy. And that strength, that aluminum is still, with the tubing, is way stronger than this rubber plastic here. It's going to be very nice. The bottom tube, what the idea with that is it protects the tank at the bottom, but also acts as a mounting point for my skid plate. So the skid plate will come out from under the car, and then you bolt to that up front with a little kick up on that plate, which will stiffen the plate and also double reinforce with the tube. So between the two of them, I've got a whole lot of strength up in this front where if it was to bash into anything coming down on a hit, it'll protect everything down here, the radiator and my all my fittings underneath. The skid plate will handle all that for my oil system and go all the way back under the transmission. So that's going to give me a mounting point for the skid plate, and also a couple rubber bumpers on top of the skid plate which will hit on the bottom of the radiator, so I'll have additional support rather than just the two little brackets down here. I'll have additional support for the radiator trying to bounce up and down. That'll help additionally reinforce the mounting for that. So just about ready to mount this guy on here. Get a look at that in a moment. I'm just waiting for the paint to dry a little bit. As soon as it's ready, I'll bolt it on and give you a look. All right, well, there it is in all its glory. So that's going to be real nice support for everything. Locks everything up. Looks awesome. Failed to point out earlier that these supports, by the way, they also support the bumper here and here, so I don't have to have brackets in the middle. That takes care of that. On the ends, it's got push locks. So I'll have to take this off in order to pull it off, but at the same time, real nice. So very happy with that. Next thing will be the skid plate underneath, but good progress. I did rattle can it. I really plan to powder coat it. That'll happen later probably. I'll pull it off, take it over and have it powder coated. But for right now, I'm running out of time. So I had to get some paint on it. So that looks good enough, I think. Bad boy. Starting to become a beast. Well, that really does start to put some horns on the bull now, doesn't it? That really pulls it together. I like it. There might be some lights involved in this later, but for right now, it's starting to come together. Really starting to be one piece, so I like the look. Next thing I got to work on, I got to start getting on this bezel to go around here. So I got a cardboard template here, cut it out of some aluminum, polish it up and see what I can do with it. But that's the next thing I got to deal with. Stiffen this up a little bit and get this supported in the center. So I like it. Well, this is kind of an update on the process making this bezel. Normally, you saw my pattern. I had a cardboard that I made out of that. I would normally just transfer that to a plasma and cut it out, but it's the weekend. I don't have access to that right now, so I'm doing it the old-fashioned way. And got myself a chunk of aluminum, and through means of various saws, sanders, hole saws, and jigsaw table saw, all of that. I'm working this out and then sanding the edges on a belt sander. So I've still got to go ahead and cut inside of this out, and then go ahead and polish that on the inside, test fit it, and then I have to go ahead and round the upper corners all the way around, make them rounded so it looks nice. And then I've got to turn it over and do some milling on the backside to recess it so I have a lip on here. So I'm going to get rid of most of what's overhanging here and just leave a lip about an 1/8 inch thick on the inside edge. It gives me that 1/4 inch thickness and dresses it all up a little bit. So anyway, that's where I'm at right now, but that's the process for the moment. So now I've got a bezel roughly cut out here to go on there, and I've gone ahead and sawed it, filed it, inside file in here, drum sander, all that good stuff to get these edges decent. So there's a lot more to go. The next step is going to be to round off all the top edges. Actually this side. So I got to round all the edges down on the top side with a little rounding bit on my router that I just showed you before when I was doing a bracket. I'll just use about an 1/8 inch radius on this, and that'll round all these edges around and dress it up pretty. That's the first step. So that'll be the next thing, and then I got to flip it over and mill off half the thickness of this material and leave a lip in here. I'll describe that in a minute. So that's starting to look a little more appropriate, the rounded edges and all. And one thing you can always do when you're working with something like this, all your fingerprints and other little light scratches, hit it with a jitterbug sander. Orbital cleans it all up, get all these edges, dresses it up much nicer. It'll accept paint real well. And even if you're going to anodize, that's a real good thing to do. I know people that professionally do this, and they always jitterbug their parts before they anodize them. And it gives them a nice soft finish. So anyway, now the next part, difficult part. I have to remove some of the thickness. I needed this 1/4 inch thickness to be able to run the rounding bit because the bearing has to run on there. And if I made it too thin, it would just dive right in. You need that guide edge. But I also want this 1/4 inch lip down here on the inside. So what I want to do is come back and mill all the way down here, an 1/8 inch deep out of this 1/4, and go ahead and leave just a small lip on the inside here, about an 1/8 inch lip all the way around. And that way, at least in the front half, back here, I'm going to change that. But the idea here is to go ahead and knock this down and leave a lip. So when I flip it over, I've got this little lip here that also dresses that edge, and it'll cover it up. That's why I made this just a little smaller than that. So then that'll cover up that inside edge and dress it up a little more. So next thing is to put it in the mill, lock it down, and cut down in here, leaving my edge an 1/8 inch deep. Do all 3 sides here. Then I've got to come back and catch these corners. That's going to be a very tight trick because I got to scribe a line and then come in with a mill, and I can go very slow, thankfully, because I'm not on a CNC. It would do this automatically, but doing it by hand, I've got to try and crank the wheels to get around this bend, but very slowly. I'll take a couple cuts on the outside, get down to my depth, and then make a last pass as my cleanup cut. So I'll leave a little extra there, and then when I'm done with that, this will have that lip and it should fit down in there nicer. And then there's more. That isn't all. Well, it's now a fraction of the weight it was. It's starting to fit. It fits in the hole. I've got my little lip on the back all the way around. Let's see, I milled that. I still got to mess with the back. I haven't decided what to do there yet. But I have to kind of clear over this a little. So I've got to relieve it somewhat, or maybe even bend it up a little bit. So it's getting close. You get the idea of what it's going to look like on there. I will paint it black and bolt it down with some button heads. But it weighs a fraction of what it did, obviously. A lot of metal removed. So there's a whole lot of work at some stupid part like this. One of the things you notice, the hood is not flat. So when I go here, it's up here at the front. So what I'll have to do is I'll have to lightly bend this when I get done. After I get all the metal removed and fit, then I will give it a very light curvature to curve down to the front here. It only needs a little, but that'll help it not try to smash the hood flat. That'll help a little bit. I think that'll look nicer too and fit good at the front. But it's coming along. And then of course once I get the back figured out, then I have to relieve this to fit around that as well. But there you go, getting closer. All right, so a little further along, as you can see, I had to put a little bit of a hump back here to clear this part of the manifold. And I've also taken this and bowed it a little bit here, give it a little curvature this way and a little down here this way. Use the old knee brake, bend it over your knee lightly, and it is aluminum, so there you go. So now I'm almost there, but as you can see, this sticks up in here and it's sitting on top. That's not going to work for me. So what I'm looking to do is probably to cut this here and here. There are holders or hold downs right over on each side here, and that will bolt it down. And I just need to match it to the edge of this bezel here. So that should do that. Then I got to figure out where the bolt holes are going to go to hold this to the hood and pull it off and paint it. But that should give me a nice transition from there, flat to there, and here. So next thing is to trim that and see how it all fits up. Okay, that's pretty much in place now. Fits around everything close. Got my rounded edges. Everything looks pretty good. Bolted it down with some flathead stainless steel screws, Allen heads, and countersunk those in. So now that's done. This is almost done. Little epoxy drying here, and it'll clean up. And so now the next step is to take this off and paint it and then bolt it back on. But the fit is good all the way around, looks good. So we're going to get it with some satin black just to match the hood and put it back on, bolt that back down, and the next look should be all there. So starting to come together too. Well, folks, that's the look. So it's got a bezel on it, metal, that'll hold everything together. And we got the cactus smasher on the front, and it's all starting to look like a real live bad boy race car. Anyway, this car may get a full repaint later this year. So the theme, Frankenstein theme, graphics, there's ideas. But right now we got racing to do. So it's just about ready. I got to put the skid plate on yet, and that's about it. Clean the windows and deal with all that, and I think we're ready to go racing. So got about 1 week from today. So here we go, folks. That's a wrap for the moment. I'm getting down to some of the more finishing off details. So skid plate. That's got to get underneath and protect everything up here, including the bottom of the radiator. So this is what goes on next. I've got a nice big, about a 50-inch long piece of 3/16 aluminum. 1/8 inch should be a little on the skimpy side in terms of protection, and 1/4 inch seems like a little overkill. Nice, but I'm trying to save as much weight as I can, and this is it's a little bit of weight. So this has basically been bent up at the front a little bit, give it a little bit of a lip that's going to go right up here and go in front of the push bar. And then I'll put a couple of rubber mounts here to help support the radiator, and then it's going to come back underneath and catch this crossbar here. I will probably put little spacers under that to clear the steering rack, bolt that together. I've got U-bolts that'll fit around things and attach it so I don't have to weld tabs on. And then it'll go back under the transmission and connect to the transmission mount. I got a little trimming to do at the back to clear the exhaust pipe, and then it start drilling some holes. So hopefully the next thing you see is this thing kind of held up in place. So I've got my bend at the front, my 2 holes for U-bolts here, my rubber snubbers to go under the radiator. I think you saw in an earlier video that the brackets for the bottom of the radiator are welded to the frame, drop down, come forward. They're not terribly strong. They're plenty for getting it in place and could hold it, but I don't trust it. So I'm adding these, and the weight of the radiator is going to rest on these instead of just hanging from those overhung tabs. I didn't like that very well. A couple more holes back here for the crossbar that goes under the engine, U-bolts, and I got a light bend here to get me to kick back up after I come downhill a little to head to the back. Also, way back the back end here, I've got a notch over here for the exhaust pipe that drops down right down here. Then I've got to come up with holes and brackets for the back. The next thing I have to do is I need to make spacers to go here, because I do need to space that off about 3/4 of an inch. That needs to go about 3/4 of an inch below where the bar is to clear the steering rack back here. So to do that, I need to make up a couple of spacers. Have it. 1 skid plate installed. That should serve some protection, right? Anyway, I think that's as far as I'm going to get today. I've got a couple more details to button up before the race, but that's it, folks. I'm ready to run. We'll deal with the backseat sheet metal when I get back. So, man, what a roll this has been. So I'm glad to get it this far. I hope you all have had fun with it. We'll do some in-car video this weekend and post that up and get to the last finishing details. So, whew, what a job it's been. All right, everybody, it's time to wrap up this video series. Frank is complete, runs and races. Took it out this last weekend, and its performance was phenomenal. Blew everybody away, even me. It truly is a monster, and I refer to it as romper room for adults. This thing was crazy fun. On the first lap, I went out, and it turned down a super good time. Mind you, I've only driven this car on the previous video 1 mile down the road and back. That's it. So I had no experience with this car, and I have precious little all-wheel drive experience. So it performed amazing. I tightened up the front shock because it was too soft and went back out for run 2, and it threw down a time that nobody touched after that. It was just crazy fast, and this thing just wants to rip. Throttle response is through the moon. It just wants to grab the cones. Hopefully not hit them, but it just runs ahead and pulls. So very, very good response. On run 3, it started out even better, but about halfway around the course, the power steering hose blew off its fitting. So I had to retire Frank for the day, but it proved its mettle. It's fantastic. It's a minor fix, easily done. Lesson here, run PTFE hose for your high pressure line. It can handle the pressure much better. And so that's going to be fixed immediately. But all in all, the performance was amazing. The car is fantastic. This thing is going to be out there this year. Look out. It's a beast. It is going to romp and stomp. So Frankaru is everything I hoped it would be, and maybe even more. Looking forward to getting this thing out this year. We've got a 2-day event coming up soon, and really going to push Frank around the course. So with that fixed, everything else held together very well, and looking forward to more times with Frank. He'll get some cosmetics later in the year. I might post something after a while, but for now, the build is done. Thank you everyone for watching. This has been quite a challenge, but the results are in, and it's a winner. It's fantastic. So thank you again, and maybe catch you on the next go round.